All right, so we got the reveal trailer for the next FromSoft game, which is going to be Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon, as everybody knows and all that. And there has been a bunch of information circulating around. I will probably show a couple of different pieces of information. I've watched a few video takes on, everybody, because Armored Core hasn't been around for a long time. And it was kind of a like average. It wasn't like a best-selling title from Software. It was more or less kind of an average thing. And as soon as I hit Demon Souls, it's like Armored Core just kind of got forgotten about. That's the kind of because I haven't really followed Armored Core. I'm not an Armored Core fan. I played Armored Core 1 on a demo disc back on the PS1. Thought it was kind of cool. Didn't like the controls of it so much, so never picked it up. It's weird because it is kind of my thing though. It's a very military, semi-realistic type of thing. I don't know. I just never got in. I never fully got into Armored Core. I never got into mech suit gameplay either. We'll get into that a little bit more in a little while though. But so there's one take from like Avadi Vidya where they're like, yeah, it most likely is From Software, and I'm kind of on that boat. Is like, did I say From Software? I mean a Souls game. That's going to be a lot more like a Souls game. I am kind of on that boat of train of thought of like, absolutely, it's going to be a Souls game. I don't need follower only mode on anymore, or sub mode on. I might have sub mode on. I actually don't know. Let me see. No, anyone can talk and chat. That's yes, there we go. Turn sub modes all off. I am not playing Callisto Protocol anymore. Sorry. But yeah. So I've heard the whole thing about like, oh, it's totally gonna be a Souls game from VaatiVidya because this and this. And then I've heard from like Flying Cowboy that's from his video, I should say, that it's not going to be, and his take is like they couldn't do a Souls game. And I think the people that are coming from that direction of like there's no way that they could do it, never say never. They absolutely can do a Souls game of Armored Core. It would just change up Armored Core's speed and momentum a little bit, but at the same time, we've seen games like Sekiro and like Wolong recently with that beta is almost just as fast paced. Neo games can be just as fast paced in the middle of battles as or at least almost just as fast paced. Just to keep the Armored Core fans from trying to murder me here. You can do a very fast paced Souls game though. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Very easily too. If they take away the stamina bar, so what I was thinking though is kind of instead of a stamina bar, you would have like you overheat, and overheat would end up being kind of your stamina bar on the screen. That could easily be a thing with this. If you're bouncing around too much, you overheat your mech, and then if you upgrade parts in your mech, then you get a bigger stamina bar, aka you don't overheat as quickly. Get like fucking water injectors, or you get like a fucking different stuff like that. They can play all that stuff into it. That's easy developer stuff. So first up, let's read through the actual press release instead of going on from other people's videos and everything. This is the actual press release that Bandai Namco sent out. So Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon is going to be available on everything, which is definitely a PC digital. So it might even be on. It'd be very interesting to see if they put this on Game Pass day one. It could be if it's Xbox, PC. Nope, this is a picture. I can't highlight stuff. Voiceover is going to be in English and Japanese, of course. Text is going to be in everything. It is published by Bandai, made by FromSoft. The release window, and I'm going to say release window, not actual release date, because this could change. It could be 2024 if something goes wrong, or if they try and add something that doesn't work, or whatever the case may be. That's game development. Stuff gets pushed forward. It can stay in that window, but it usually always gets pushed forward. It depends on how far in development they are on this too. This could be a case where they're pushing this out there and they're getting all this information out there to see what the fan response is. And if people really like it, then okay, cool, we'll keep going forward. If they don't, then okay, we'll just push the release date forward. by a little bit, maybe 6 months or so, rechange some of the actual like core stuff that's going on. Guaranteed they're probably also fishing for ideas, which is the reason why I'm doing, this Let's Talk right now. And to see, okay, what's the cool ideas that the public can come up with, and then we'll maybe take some of those ideas and use it in the game also. Developers do that all the time. That's the reason why, reaction videos and something like, Let's Talk videos I make, you never know. You never know when a developer's going to come by one of your ideas and be like, that sounds pretty cool. So dynamic, fast-paced mech action based on the knowledge gained developing the Dark Souls series and Elden Ring. I mean, right there, it's kind of hinting that, yes, they're changing the formula a little bit for Armored Core. It's going to be more like the two series, especially Elden Ring. That's been their biggest fucking game sold ever. Of course they're going to chase that. Like I've said on multiple occasions, there's no way they're not going to make the next game not a Soul-style game.
Game of the year winner is Elden Ring.
No bullshit. This is fucking right. God damn it. No, good shit, Miyazaki. Everybody worked on it. Good stuff. And what is a Soul-style game? And that's actually a good question there too. Okay, you know what? Yeah, actually, before we actually dive into the press release, let's discuss what is a Soul-style game. Seen this tweet right here from Lance McDonald, which it is kind of getting, it's slowly getting some numbers on it, but the Reset Era article, which again, Reset Era, it's almost like the try hard Reddit is what I always see of this. But Omnipotent, whoever this person is, basically they said that they have seen and played the game, or at least seen it, whatever. Said in detail, he asked me to post this on behalf because he left Era a while back, probably because people were saying stop being so damn biased with your opinions. But this whole thing just reads like one person's very like somewhat narrow-minded but very like personal bias of like what a Souls game should be. And in all honesty, like the Souls genre has gone so wide and so depth of like what the Souls genre actually is. Like Sekiro is 100% now a Souls like game also, because it has lock on, because it has that's very the puzzly kind of combat and all that stuff in it. But if what this person's saying is like a Souls game has to have the following elements in it: third-person, ground-based, combat focus. It has to be an RPG. Doesn't have to be. Melee, magic-based combat. Okay. Classless, non-rigid character building. That's ultimately wrong right there, because the first Dark Souls game, you have basically a class system. Elden Ring has basically a class system. You can either be very fast, kind of roguelike, or you can have a heavy sword, or you can use your magic and shoot people with. Saying melee and magic base and classless that just makes no sense. Free exploration, not always. There is Demon Souls is very like linear. There's not too much free exploration to it at all. You have to go down the set paths, and then you open up the door, which makes, as I call it, the loop around, which loops you back to the starting point. That's not free roam. That's not free exploration. That's a linear path set by the developer. Dodging, evading, core combat element, blah blah blah. Anyways, and like PvP and co-op and all, no, it doesn't have to have this at all. There's been plenty of games that are Souls-like that don't have that. We just seen Steel Rising and Thymesis in the last like year or two. Those two came out and they don't even have PvP or co-op in them. No. And they're not free exploration either. They are linear based. So this person just has a very biased opinion on it. So everything that this is saying, I'm just like, I'm like, okay, that's kind of your opinion on the situation. To me, I would say a Soul style game is anything that has a lock on. So if it's a lock on, it doesn't have to have a stamina system, but a stamina system definitely helps with that. But also, where each engagement in the combat is kind of that puzzle. Like you'll have some enemies, so they're going to have a power shield on them. So how do I get around that? Do I stab them? Do I throw a missile at them? Do I, what's the game plan there? The boss fights should be hard. This should be a very hard game. It shouldn't be just like, because that's one of the things with Armored Core games. Every time I've had hands on with them, I get so bored because it's just like, it's so fucking easy. I just run around, just blow everything up. I'm done. And then it's like, oh, yay, you got some money. Here's your next mission. You jump into there. You zoom around. Bing, bang, boom. You're done. Oh, yay. Next mission. You zoom around. You bing, bang, boom. You do that. It's just repetitive. Same thing over and over and over again. And it's, just barely any story there to actually keep you engaged. That's my big problem with all these mech games and everything. This game feels like it could solve that because they do have a different way that they are approaching game design and level design and, mission design and everything, or quest design, whatever you want to call it. From Software could be the first ones to be like, okay, hold on a second. We don't need to just do the same thing every single mission. Okay, so you go into the different areas, and each of the fights that you engage in is going to be a different kind of enemy type. They're going to have different add-ons to their mechs. That feels just like what they've been doing with the Souls games. You go into the first area and you have stuff that's screeching at you. You go into the next one, they have shields. You go into the next area, they can fly. You go into the next area, they're quick, or they're small or whatever. They can put that same approach to this. That's a very Souls-style gameplay. It is like varied, very, very customized character loadouts, varied characters interacted, and what you're running into and all that. And then on top of that, you have, like I said, the lock-on, methodical combat, not just run-in action, shooting everything. No, that's not really what From Software makes anymore. If that's what you're looking from Armored Core, I don't think you're going to like From Software anymore. That's just not what sells. And in all honesty, if it sells very well and they have made a ton of profit off of it, you're in the minority on this. If you like the old school Armored Core stuff, and that's, in all honesty, you're in the minority on that. The majority of players like Souls, the Dark Souls, the Elden Ring, the Bloodborne, Sekiro, Neo, and that's actually one of those things too. Is like, man, this helps with. So, I feel like in the future we're gonna have almost too many games that are like the sword based, Japanese, Chinese culture based. Lock on and, dip dodge around and everything. I feel like we're getting so many of those games that are almost going to start feeling oversaturated by next year. So this might be the one it's From Software hitting this, it's a very similar feel to those, but it's something different. And so I think that's where let's jump into this again. So based on so Bandai Namco FromSoft is seeking to deliver a new action game by combining FromSoft's long-standing expertise in mech games and their signature robust gameplay. Armored Core 6 will be a new action experience. I think this is saying that it's like it is kind of a reboot. Like Value Video was saying that, he goes, as far as I can tell, they've rebooted the series multiple times over again. I feel like this could be a reboot that not only will it stick, but also it's going to bring in a large player base because it's what you are, it's going to be similar to what you already know. And that's probably the reason why it would stick. Oh, sorry. I was going to go full screen with that. My bad. So signature robust gameplay. This right here is telling 100% that if it's the signature robust gameplay that we know of all the Dark Souls and Elden Ring gameplay, it is going to be a little bit slower. It's going to be a little more grounded. It's going to be, I don't know if you're going to be flying all over the place. They might just take the jetpacks right out of it and give you boosters so you can sidestep basically. Very similar to like Bloodborne is, where you can just go and you can jump out of the way of stuff. If they do that and they take away flying, cool. I don't even mind. What they could also do is just make a full-on flying part where all of a sudden it's like, okay, we need to jump from this part of the map to over to there, over to here, over to this part, and then all of a sudden your mech just goes and it goes transformer style, turns into a plane, and then you fly forward over to that part of the map. Meanwhile, while you're flying, you're shooting shit while you're in the air and everything. We've seen that stuff be in Armored Core 2. So they can do the signature style, and they can get away with doing like little mini games in between. That is, I mean, come on, that's just old school design. We know they can do that stuff. Players will assemble and pilot their own mech with 3D maneuverability to move freely through 3 dimensions, fast paced. So 3D maneuverability. Again, I don't know if this is going to mean you can fly like the jetpack, flying up on top of a building or whatever. I don't know if they're actually meaning that. I think 3D maneuverability is more or less they're saying it's not tank controls. Because when you think of tanks, when you think of mechs, you think of tank controls. And moving, so then, but also you have your right stick that moves your turrets, you have your left stick that moves your feet and goes back and forth. So then you're constantly doing this on the battlefield. You're looking for enemies, and your feet don't move sideways, they just move back and forth while you're scanning. And I think they're going to probably try and get away from that. I think that the dual stick scheme of going back and forth with it, I think it's going to be your left analog stick moves your whole tank and everything, and it's going to be, instead of moving the upper of the tank, they're just going to put that to the camera, and then the camera is going to be your pointer, just like a Souls game would be. And then you have a lock on. And I think I said in the other video that I did with Frostbite that there was no lock on, and when I was watching it back, there is definitely a lock on. It was just a very, like, the camera was not very locked on to the action, but your tank was locking on. So I think the camera is going to lock on more than the tank will, the auto aim system on the missiles. There we go. And stuff like that, where it's like, I can lock on. That's not the lock on that I was really talking. I was talking about like the camera itself. But it was the lock on system that I was remembering that the tank could do it. So what I'm thinking is the camera is going to be more of a lock on than the actual, and then whatever you're aimed at with the camera, that's going to be what you end up shooting at, more or less, just like any other game would do. Because, you got to remember, Armored Core comes from a very old control scheme before, Armored Core predates analog sticks, dual analog sticks. So, take on difficult challenges and overwhelm your enemies with dynamic movements that make full use of range and melee combat. So this is not saying dynamic movements of, again, being able to fly up, upwards horizontally, but it's using vertical movement with ranged and melee attacks. So, guided missiles, lock-on missiles, all that stuff, and then all of a sudden, you come through and you bring out a laser sword and start cutting them down. Actually, I played one of the Armored Cores on stream before, and I had the one-on-one fight that I did in one of the other Armored Core games. So again, the main experience that I feel like everybody has with all this stuff is you have your target lock on with your missiles and your guns and everything. And sure, that was in the old games, but your controller or your camera movement, also the back and forth to strafe left and right, was on your L2 and R2, if I remember right, or L1 R1, something like that. It was on your shoulder buttons, I'm pretty sure. And I think that is definitely going to get changed up. So this like very limited, very robotic movement, I think is going to be totally switched up. And I think everything's most of all your movement is going to be on the left stick. You're going to have probably R3 to lock on to something like this right here, flying up in the air. I don't think that's going to be there. I think it's going to be more or less like this right here. So I think that this is what they're going to kind of go for a lot more with this new Armored Core thing, where it's like you can shoot them and then you're fully locked on. You won't lose the lock on though. And see, this is where the newer like Souls style comes into play, is where you're gonna have that camera lock. It's not the robot or the mech suit isn't locking on. It's the actual camera itself is locking on. And then instead of side run with your shoulders, like I said, it's going to be on the analog stick. So when you go left or right, you will go to the side. And then, yeah, like I said, you can bring out your laser sword and start swiping everything. Like, this is already very Souls-like in the way it handled. I mean, a lot of Souls stuff also, Miyazaki got the design from this right here. So to say that you can't do an Armored Core game in the style of a Souls game is just, I have no idea where the hell that thought train is coming from. That seems so weird when it's literally, they borrow off from one another. All you have to do, I mean, you're not even changing Armored Soul that much. You're still keeping a lot of the DNA, because a lot of the DNA, like I said, is in the core of the experience of a Souls game also. So let's see here. So players can enjoy a variety of actions that can only be truly realized with mechs, which is probably the missiles and all that stuff. So yeah, for gameplay wise, that seems like it could be actually pretty cool. Very Soulsy like I said, where it's just like you have a little more freedom of movement, but it's just going to be the controls are probably going to be better, and then they're going to put, like I said, a camera lock instead of a turret lock. Now the story on this: a mysterious new substance was discovered on the remote planet Rubicon 3 as an energy source. This substance was expected to dramatically advance humanity's technological and communications capabilities. Instead, this substance caused a catastrophe that engulfed the planet and the surrounding stars in flames and storms, forming a burning star system. Almost half a century later, the same substance resurfaced on Rubicon 3, a planet now contaminated and sealed off by the catastrophe. Just saying, it's very Mass Effect like, but that's a good thing. It gets my attention through and through. This seems it seems very similar in storyline to this. In the year, explorers on Mars discovered the remains of an ancient spacefaring civilization. Decades that followed, these mysterious artifacts reveal startling new technology enabled travel to the furthest stars. A mysterious new substance was discovered on a remote planet, Rubicon, energy source expected to dramatically advance humanity's technology and communications. Literally, they find a Mass Effect substance, and then it pushes technology, forward by 3,000 years and all that. Almost half a century later, the same substance resurfaced on Rubicon 3, a planet now contaminated and sealed off by the catastrophe. Extraterrestrial corporations and resistance groups fight over control of the substance. The player infiltrates Rubicon as an indie merc and finds himself in a struggle over the substance with the corporations and other factions. So this right here is actually a very big telling thing of what is going to be part of the storyline and how the map is probably going to be set up and everything. I don't know how they're going to set the map up for this, and that's actually one of those things. It's probably going to be more like a like Demon Souls or Dark Souls 3, where it's like you get littler maps. It's not going to be like Elden Ring where it's full on free roam and everything. It's probably going to be littler maps where you run in and you drop into facility, and then you get the cutscene and all that stuff. You go through and you beat up the boss fight. They give you information. You relay that information back to HQ or whoever you're working for and whatnot. Resistance groups fight over control of the substance. So I think instead of you actually as an independent merc, I think you're going to be working for one corporation, like an undercover government or something. As an indie merc, you jump into there. Like, they're setting up a pretty cool story with this. I'll give them that. And yeah, you end up doing it. I don't know if they're going to have like multiple choice storylines or any of that stuff going on, like Mass Effect does, but definitely seems like you're going to be like doing some undercover work. It's the same shit. So I'm liking it though. If they're going to use Mass Effect's storyline to actually push a Souls-like narrative so it's Mass Effect meets a Souls narrative, oh fuck yeah, I'm there. I think Bloodborne is amazing. So Miyazaki, if you want to, so this is the thing though. Miyazaki is not the head of this game. He started the vision for it. So Miyazaki will be involved as the initial game director. Based on the initial development, Yamamura has taken over as director. So Miyazaki, I think, is going to go and work on, from what we've heard from certain sources, that Elden Ring's development is not finished because it sold so well that they're going to try and make like an actual story DLC for it, which I thought we were going to see that at the Game Awards, of like a prequel teaser of some kind, like prequel DLC. I'm still really hoping for that. I don't know if it's going to be that. I have no idea what the DLC is going to be. But the Colosseum DLC is not the last. That's just basically just a patch update. It was like content that they didn't have done in enough time for the actual release. And they just been like fine tuning it and everything. Fine, cool. A story DLC though would be amazing to see happen, and I think we're going to end up getting that in the maybe nearest future. Given another 6 months or so, I think we might end up seeing like a story DLC for Elden Ring. I think that's what Miyazaki's going to work on. He probably got the go ahead for Armored Core, and he's like, okay, I've been wanting to work on Armored Core. Fuck it, let's just take this. We'll take that project and we'll have that in development, because that's the thing. Elden Ring mostly done. It's just the side crew that's working on it now. As soon as Elden Ring ships, boom, they start working on the next project. It's just the way game development works. So is Miyazaki, if he finishes up the Elden Ring DLC, which who knows how big that's going to be, how long it's going to take them to do that, he very well could be coming back to work on Armored Core again. He said in interviews that he really wanted to do that, and in VR, which is another point I wanted to bring up too. If they do this, and this game ends up being maybe a bit of a VR thing, that would be amazing. And I've said this before on streams and videos and everything, of like, imagine being in VR and it's like No Man's Sky, where you have, your wiggle waggles, and you can push on the buttons, and you can, you're moving the mech's, arms and legs and everything on the inside and all that stuff. That'd be so cool. I mean, anybody who's ever like Power Rangers or like Pacific Rim or or just have seen like mech suit games and whatnot, I mean, it's that could be amazing to see that just happening in VR form, of just you sitting in the cockpit, just totally controlling everything. If you've ever done like a flight sim or whatever, you know what I'm talking, or like Gran Turismo in VR, you know what I'm talking about with this stuff, of like how crazy immersive it is when you're sitting inside in VR of a car or a ship or a plane or whatever. Ace Combat was awesome, and I can just imagine Ace Combat, but then you're in a mech suit and you're walking and everything else, like, controlling one of these big ass suits, but you're in VR and you're in the middle of it and everything. That'd be so cool. Do I think they're gonna do VR? Who knows? I know Miyazaki wanted to, but it all depends on how much Bandai really wants to spend on it. Bandai already, Capcom already spent money on doing Resident Evil VR, so maybe Bandai will look at that and be like, that worked. That was pretty cool. And this would be a perfect time to do it too, because they are making this into a AAA big budget title. So just add the VR mode on top of that, possibly, if they know how to do it, and if it's not going to cost them an arm and a leg. The VR mode would be the DLC though. So if you're looking for like storyline DLC, I think the VR mode basically takes up the storyline DLC budget. Which again, for all of us that have VR, it's really, really cool. So yeah, it's just an extra thought that I had about that, of like VR would be fucking amazing. So yeah, this is the reset era thing. Everybody's showing this off. I don't know how much of this reset era, Q&A article stuff that Red Licorice there was talking about. I don't know how much of that will actually come into the final project of this, because that's early development, and stuff in early development gets changed and cut and added to, and you never know what the final product's going to be after seeing early development. I've seen it plenty enough times, hands-on with my own two eyes myself, where it's like, oh, this was this, now it's turned into that. Oh, okay. Sometimes it's for the better, sometimes for the worse. So what they end up seeing in as a leak, like I said, that's so old information at this point. Who knows how much has changed past that. Even the screenshots that they were showing off too, which all these screenshots, the game looks way better than this now. Like this looks like it's a PS4 game or something, like PS4, Xbox One game. What we're seeing here, I mean, this straight up looks like PS5, Series X, RTX 3080, 4080, 4090, 50 million, something running that can do current gen, next gen, DLSS, ray tracing, all that stuff. Yeah, this definitely looks like it's, big budget modern stuff, not like a next gen game being made into a modern title, or a last gen game being made into a current gen title. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff going into this, and I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping that they can do something that piques my attention and the attention of a lot of others, because Armored Core could use it. There's a lot of untapped potential sitting there on the table, and if they can make it so it's generally received well by everyone, cool. That's another big franchise on the list of like, hell yeah, sign me up for it. That's another cool ass adventure. And it's not blood, guts, and goriness. It's like something that's a little bit different, but with a very similar mindset going into the direction of it. But it's not blood, guts, and gory. So it's almost like a palate cleanser in a way of that, like, my God, we have like 3 months worth of horror games. We don't need another horror game. Okay, cool. This is something different. It's kind of got the same vibes to it, but it's definitely different.